विष्णुपादाय कृष्णपृष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिन्निति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वती देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्य देशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद नित्यानंद नमस्तुभ्यं प्रेमानंद प्रदायिने कलौ कल्मषनाशाय जानवापतये नमः नमो महावदन्याय कृष्ण प्रेम प्रदायते कृष्णाय कृष्ण चैतन्य नाम्नि गौरद्वेषे नमः। हे कृष्ण करुणा सिंधु दीनबंधु जगतपते गोपेश गोपिका कांत राधा कांत नमोस्तुते तप्त कांचन गौरांगी राधे वृंदावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौरभक्तवृंद। हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे। Hare Krishna. We are discussing one of Srila Prabhupada's book, that is The Light of Bhagavatam. This is second session. In previous session we discussed from 1 to 10 verse, and today we will discuss from 11 to 15. Very nice comparison is given in every verses of this 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Now in 11th verse it is described that in the rainy season, when the rivers swell and rush to the ocean, and as the wind blows the wave about, the ocean appears to be agitated. Similarly, if a person engaged in a mastic yoga process is not very advanced in spiritual life, he can be affected by modes of material nature and thus will be agitated by the sex impulse. Here the comparison is given that when in rainy season, especially when the rivers swell due to rainfall, it rushes to ocean, and the strong winds blow on the surface of the ocean. So an account of this effect, the waves of the ocean goes very high, right? So that ocean becomes very wavy. Why? Due to the effect of wind and river. Similarly, the person who is not matured in spiritual life, or in other words, the person who is not sthita pragya, he will be agitated by the modes of material nature. Here the very word came, that sthita pragya, or the person who is fixed in spiritual consciousness or spiritual knowledge. I will give an example later on, but the point that I am making is the spirit soul is Sat, Chit and Anand. The constitutional position or constitutional nature of the spirit soul is Sat, Chit and Anand. Every spirit soul is hankering after bliss or happiness, right? But depending on the consciousness, that person finds that respective happiness. Suppose the living entity who are in lower consciousness or lower grade of life, they find their happiness in finding, eating, mating, sleeping, and defending, right? So their consciousness is low, means they're depending on their consciousness, or depending or consciousness means that living entity who are in that particular mode of material nature, their standard of happiness will be compared to that consciousness. Now the person who has purified their consciousness, their enjoyment or their happiness is not remains in that for process, or you can say that ahar nidra bhaya and maitun, that four activities. Why? Because his consciousness is purified. So every living entity is hankering after happiness, either temporary or permanent. Now, depending on their knowledge, spiritual knowledge, their habits of enjoyment will differ. There, in uh, Vedanta Sutra, one of the aphorism is Anandamaya Abhyasat. Anandamaya Abhyasat means Anand or happiness. Everybody is looking or searching for happiness, right? But due to their ignorance or nescience, that person find their happiness in this material world. Just as Srimad Bhagavatam, that first verse described that this nature of this material world is Tejo Varimrud. This verse says that Tejo Varimrudam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Amrusha. Amrusha means temporary. Yatra Trisarga. This is Sarga Srishti. Sarga means manifestation and again annihilation. Manifestation and again annihilation. So in Sanskrit, Srujan and Vinash. So this cycle is going on. So this is called Sarga Srishti, right? So three Sarga means this Sarga Srishti has three part or planetary system, upper, middle and lower planetary system. So three Sarga, or in other words, this Sarga Srishti is comprised of three modes of material nature. And what is the nature of this material world? It is said that Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo. Teja means light, Vari means water, and Mrud means the land. This it is described in this verse. It is said Vinimay. Vinimay means combination of different elements of this material world. In Bhagavad Gita also it is said that there are five gross element and three subtle element. So this whole world is comprised of this eight element, which is dead, and different combination of or you can say different percentage of different combination. This whole material world is created, right, at certain moment, and after and in due course of time, this same material world will be annihilated by the effect of time. So Tejo Vari Mridam Yatha Vinimayo Yatra Trisargo Amrusha, and Amrusha means temporary. So this is the nature of this world is said here that temporary. But I already mentioned that spirit soul is eternal. So spirit soul is prone to enjoy eternal happiness, not temporary happiness. But this world is temporary. So how can it is possible that the eternal living entity can find permanent happiness in this material temporary world? It is certain that the living entity will never find the happiness, permanent happiness in this material world. The devotee's case is different. But if we materialistic person or the person who wants to engage or to indulge in sense gratification, they will never get permanent happiness for which the spirit soul is hankering about, right? So this is this material world, and we have already experienced that however the person is advanced in sense gratification or from material perspective, he will never get that permanent happiness. So here it is said that although the person is situated in spiritual consciousness, not in full, but still he will be attracted by the modes of material nature. The modes of material nature is very varying. This word is also said Durga, or the place which is, you can say, govern under the rule of Durga Devi. So this world is called as Durgam or Durg, which is very difficult to overcome. So this world is very difficult to overcome or to difficult to transit these modes of material nature. Why? Because this mode is governed or controlled by this Durga Devi, the external energy of the Supreme Lord. But the point that I am making is uh, these three modes of material nature is very difficult. Mama Maya Duratya. Duratya means it is very difficult to overcome these modes of material nature. So, unless and until the person is situated in full consciousness or in full knowledge of spirituality, he will be attracted by the temporary object of this material world. Why? Because his knowledge is not fructified. Uh, in Bhagavad Gita, in second chapter, one verse comes that Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina rasovarjam rasopyasam param drishta nivartate. Or it is said that rasovarjam rasopyasam Vishaya vinivartante niraharasya dehina. It is not that the living entity will never gives up the sense gratification. Vishaya vinivartante. It is said that though the embodied soul may be restrained from the sense enjoyment, the taste for the sense enjoyments remains. But seeking such engagement by experiencing a higher taste, he is fixed in consciousness. Right? This is Sthita Pragya. Everybody is hankering about enjoyment, but as soon as he enjoys the higher taste of that particular enjoyment, he will seize that lower taste. So it is obvious that the person who has relished the higher taste of devotion, he will seize this sense gratification of or the material activity, right? So this is the thing that we have to first of all control, or we have to fix ourselves in fixed consciousness, just as the ocean remains, right? Here another verse comes that apuryamana achala pravishtam samudramapa pravishanti yadvat tatvat kama yam pravishanti sarve sa shantim apnoti na kama kami. So unless the person's mind, or you can say the desire of the of that person is unsteady, or unless the person is fixed in spiritual consciousness, he will try to enjoy this material world. Trying to enjoy means he will fulfill their material desires, and unless his desire is not fulfilled, he will be unsteady. Just like the ocean, when the rivers or when the storms comes in the ocean becomes wavy. Similarly, the person becomes wavy in this material world, and he will be rotting in this material world, right? And he will never find that happiness. Rather than he will be disappointed, he will be frustrated as soon as this person, you can say, surcharged with this sense enjoyment or sense gratification. We have personally seen that when we try to enjoy any of the sense object, after some time we will you can sometimes we feels that we become disgusted to enjoy this thing. Suppose, for example, uh, one of the person has a good habit, or he wants or he likes to eat a gulab jambu, right? Or bullets, sweet bullets. If I offer him that 100 pieces of gulab jambu, he will try first, then second, then third. But in due course of time, that happiness, the graph of that happiness will decrease. In economics, it is called diminishing marginal utility. or the utility which is diminishing, or that standard of that happiness is decreasing. Why? Because it is temporary, or we become habituated to enjoy that particular object. It is not certain to particular eating habits. It is applicable to every sense object of this material world. So we have to think that this world, or this entire object of this world, we are not supposed to enjoy this object. Why? Because we are eternal, and we are supposed to enjoy the spiritual object, not this material object, right? Because we are spiritual entity, we are spirit soul, not of the we are not composed of this material world, or any of the matter. Although we are covered this matter, or the lumps of the matter, but we are we are not supposed to enjoy this material world. And in Srimad Bhagavatam, there are many verses which describes that this human form of life is not created for sense gratification. Why? Because we know this material body, or any of the material body, is composed of 7 elements, right? The blood, urine, semen, that skin, that uh, bones, flesh, and blood. So these 7 elements are there, and the combination, by the combination of these 7 matter, this body is you can say created, or you can say manufactured. But we should know this is all dead element. We should not enjoy this world. And every materialistic person has that dormant tendency to enjoy this material world. This is also comes that pravrittim, uh, pravrittiresham bhutanam nivrittim cha mahaphalam. Pravritti means in this material world, everybody has natural tendency to enjoy this material world. It is pravritti means natural activity. Even if the person is not forced to act in sense gratification, by nature he will enjoy this material world. In in one of the lecture, Prabhupada was describing that nobody is teaching how to engage in sex life, right? But in due course of time, every person knows that how to enjoy sex life, right? Why? Because it is pravritti. Pravritti means natural activity in this world. And similarly, the eating, sleeping, this is same. It is pravritti. So this is pravritti. Nivritti means detachment or refraining from the sense gratification. This is the mahaphalam. Mahaphalam means we have to act in order to get any spiritual, or in order to achieve spiritual realization or self-realization. So in self-realization, we have to give some effort, strong effort. Rather, in sense gratification, even if the person is not give the strong effort, it is prone to engage in these 4 activities. So the point that I'm making is, unless the person is fixed in spiritual consciousness, he will be attracted by these 3 modes of material nature. And what is this 3 mode? This is tejo vari mridam yatha vinimayo. We should know that we are spirit soul in this engagement, in this material body, dead lumps of body. And this whole world is also a dead. So how can a dead element can enjoy dead matter? It is not fair, or you can say it is not good. Not, I mean, it is, you can say, there is no comparison that how can a dead matter can enjoy dead matter, right? We are spirit soul, and this body in Sanskrit, this body is called kunam. So how long the person or the spirit soul enjoy this guna. After all, this body will be covered by a saffron cloth or the yellow or uh, orange cloth, and this body will turn into ashes or stool or germs, or you can say worms. So this is the destination of this body. So we should not enjoy this body, because this precious human form of life we have got. So we should strive for self realization, not sense gratification, right? So this is the knowledge that we have to achieve. But unless the person gets this knowledge or person receive this knowledge, he will be attracted by these modes of material nature. So this is described in this verse, that he will be agitated by these modes of material nature unless he is fixed in spiritual consciousness. So overall of these verses, we have to fix ourselves anyhow into spiritual consciousness, because until and unless we are fixed in this consciousness, we will be attracted by, or we will be, you can say, captivated by these modes of material nature. This is all about 11th verse. Now 12th verse. The mountains, although being struck by torrents of rain during rainy season, are not shaken, just as those whose heart are dedicated to the transcendental personality of Godhead are never disturbed, even when harassed by great misfortune. I remember one verse that the person who are sthita pragya, in this verse it is said, तानि सर्वाणि संयम्य युक्त आसीक्त मत्पर वशे हि यस्येन्द्रियाणि तस्य प्रज्ञा प्रतिष्ठिता. And I already told that Vishaya Vinivartante Niraharasya Dehina Rasavarjam Rasopyasam Paramdrashta Nivartate. So the person who has realized the higher taste of devotion, or the person who has dedicated their whole life to Supreme Personality of Godhead or Sri Krishna, how can that person will relish this temporary mellow, not a mellow, but a rotting mellow of this world? This is obvious question, that how can it is possible? But first of all, we have to engage in devotion. So as soon as we engage ourselves in devotion or self-realization, in the path of self-realization, at that time we will feel or we will you can say experience the glimpse, not the permanent happiness, but just a glimpse of permanent happiness. So we will always strive to acquire or to achieve that permanent platform of that happiness. So this is said that the person who is fixed in spiritual consciousness, he will not be affected or he will not be agitated by the modes of material nature, just as the mountain is not affected by the effect of the heavy rainfall, right? Because it is very strongly settled into onto the land, right? And he will never be affected. Similarly, the person who is very much fixed in spiritual consciousness, he will be disgusted to this lower taste of sense gratification. So this is said, and there are many verses that how can the person becomes totally engaged in devotion. There are 9th process of devotion, and even Amrish Maharaj also says that Savai Manah Krishna Padara Vindayor Vachansi Vaikuntha Gunanu Varnane Karo Harer Mandir Marjanadishu Shrutim Chakarachyuta Sat Kathodaye Mukundalinga Layadarshane Drisho तद्भृत्य गात्र स्पर्शे अंग संगमम घ्राणम च तत्पाद सरोज सौरभे श्रीमत् तुलस्या रसनाम तदर्पिते पादो हरि ऋषिकेश पदानुसर्पणे शिरो ऋषिकेश पदाभिवंदने कामम च दास्य नतु काम कामया यथोत्तम श्लोक जनाश्रयारति. So here it is said that the person who is engaged in devotion, this all we have to engage our senses into the service of the master of the senses. The Sanskrit of this sense is Rishik. Rishik means Indriya, or Indriya means senses. And the Rishik Isha, or the master of the senses, is Rishikesha. So the person who has engaged their senses in the service of the master of the senses, he will be never affected by this temporary happiness, because he is very much fixed in the spiritual knowledge. So this is, we have to digest the spiritual knowledge, not just hear, but we have to digest the spiritual knowledge. And this is the thing that we have to acquire, because I have seen that many devotees, they are hearing, but after hearing so much, they are engaged in the many sense gratification activity. Why? Because they have not digested the thing. This is the practical thing. But when the person is fixed in spiritual consciousness, he will never be agitated by the modes of material nature. And we have seen many devotees, just as Haridas Thakur, or many devotees, they in example Narad Muni, or many devotees. So he is not agitated even if great you can say impediments comes in their path. Why? Because they have tested the higher test, or the higher mellows of the devotion. And this devotion is our natural task, because we are eternal living entities, living, not a dead. So a living entity has their natural tendency to serve the Supreme Lord, and this devotion is the natural activity for the spirit soul. And that spiritual platform we have to acquire. It's our permanent activity, not a temporary activity. We know that when the person studies any particular type, particular subjects, for example, the person or the students, he will study the, for example, advocate, or any engineering object, any engineering subject, then he will become engineer. But when he dies at the end of life, he will forget any entire engineering studies, right? And in next birth, if he becomes a human, he will again start another streams of knowledge. So this activity is differing, all the living entities, their activity is differing. But this devotion, the beauty of this devotion is it remains permanent. Why? Because it is eternal. And we are also eternal. So the devotion is the natural activity for the living beings, and we have to acquire that, because we have seen that after serving many person, and even if the person gives a very strong effort to satisfy other, he will never satisfied, because the senses of the person is insatiable, insatiated or insatiable. It is said in the third chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, that one of the you can say nature, or the qualities or attributes of the senses is uh, uh, Yes, Dushpurena. Dushpurena means it will never satisfy, right? So, uh, in Chaitanya Charitamrita also, Brahmana says very beautiful verse that I have tried to uh, I have just forgot that special verse. That Brahmana he regrets that I have tried to fulfill the desire or the, you can say, hankering of the different senses, but I have failed. Why? Uh, the verses I forgot, but the translation of the verses is this senses is insatiated or it will never satisfied. So we should try to satisfy the permanent object, and that permanent object is supreme lord. And we have seen that even if the person remains in poverty or in lower status, materially or apparently, we see that the person remains in the lower grade of life, or artificially, or not artificially, apparently or superficially he remains in lower status of life, but he is totally satisfied. Why? Because he is engaged in devotional activity. And the person, in other words, or in contrast, the person who has achieved the higher status of life in this material world, he will have to give up. Why? Because it is not a permanent activity. The permanent activity is devotion. So unless the person gets this kind of knowledge, or the person who is not fixed up in this permanent state of life, he will be agitated, uh, right? And here another verse, 13th verse comes that in the rainy season, some of the roads are not frequently used and become covered with long grasses, and thus it becomes very difficult to see the road. Similarly, in this age, the transcendental scriptures are not properly studied by the Brahmanas, and being covered by the effects of time, the scriptures are practically lost, and it becomes very difficult to understand or follow them. Here it is said that in rainy season, some of the paths, especially in the village, we have seen that a grass comes out in the rainy season. So it is very difficult to trail that path, right? Similarly, uh, in this age, especially in the Kali Yuga, there are many spiritual society, the so-called spiritual society, and they have their own perspective, yatomat tathopat, uh, on account of their mental concocted theories and mental concoction, you can say, approaches to get that permanent abode of spiritual world. They have covered the real path, and the devotion only the by the mercy of the supreme lord, or by the mercy of devotees, we can trail this path, because it is very difficult to acquire, to approach the right path, right, or pure path of devotion. But by the mercy of the supreme lord, we can trail, or we can find that particular right path in this material world. We have seen many societies, or many institute, or many sampradayas are there. So the person can becomes confused that which sampradaya or which institute in which I have to join, right? So there are many society, but by the mercy only of this Chaitya Guru, or the spirit soul, or uh, Paramatma, right, super soul, by the mercy of the super soul, the person can get at a right place to pursue right path, right? But if the person wants to be cheated, or the person wants to enjoy in this material world, they will find the respective path, because he wants to be cheated. And if the person who is pure in his heart, he will come into the four sampradayas which is established by the Supreme Lord himself, right? These four sampradayas they are authorized to perform the devotion. Apart from that, all the sampradayas are mentally concocted or manifested. They are just like velas, or you can say small. Uh, in the well, there are certain types of small plants which is came out from the in the inner side of wall, but it will end up at a certain you can say the certain place. There are nothing to come out from the wall except this four robes which is you can say given by the Supreme Lord, right? So if the person hold these robes, he will come out by picking these robes. So this is the trail that the Supreme Lord has created. But in this age, this trail, the real path is covered by the time. We have seen that in due course of time, this spiritual or the real path is covered by dint of the time. Kalena Vyavasa. In fourth chapter, it is said that Sakalene Hamata Yoganashta Parantapa. Yoganashta, or the process to devotion, is lost in due course of time. So it is obvious in this material world, because this material world is dominated by the modes of material nature, or in other words, it is dominated by the influence of Mahamaya. If we see the Mahamaya, then that main job of Mahamaya is to keep the conditioned living entity in this material world, or Mahamaya works in two types, Avaranatmika and Prakshapatmika. Avaranatmika means it will cover the knowledge of the spirit soul, and the spirit soul will engage into sense gratification. So this to cover this spirit soul, or the job of the Mahamaya is to cover the knowledge of the living entities, right? And Prakshapatmika means to give punishment to the conditioned living entity. So this is the job that the Supreme Lord has given to this Mahamaya, and this Mahamaya will keep the living entity into this material world, because as soon as the person engages in sense gratification, he will acted under the modes of material nature, or he will be entangled by the result of that particular activity. So the cycle of karma will last long, right? So this is not a one birth cycle. Many births that living entity will have to it will take many births, and in those birth in the future, he will again act in particular modes of material nature. So in future also, that he will enjoy in the result of that particular mode in next birth. So this whole cycle continues until the person get this devotion, because this devotion is akarma, or akarma means the activity which has no result means it will end the entire result of that activities, and we will go back to Godhead. This is the real path that we have to pursue, and the devotion that we have to taught, because this material world is very insignificant or very disgustable. We will be disappointed by enjoying this material world. So we have to think the the right path for which the living entities are searching for. If we want to be cheated, the cheaters are there, because this whole world is under the modes of material nature, and it is complete you can say establishment, or complete arrangement of the complete. In the introduction of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita, it is said, I want to read that introduction. This is the complete facility for the small complete units, namely the living entities, to realize the complete, and all sort of incompleteness are experienced due to incomplete knowledge of the complete. So, the Bhagavad Gita contains the complete knowledge of Vedic wisdom. So, when we will learn this science from the Bhagavad Gita, we will come to the complete knowledge, and that complete knowledge is to pursue the devotion. We have to approach this devotional activity. We have to perform or engage in devotional activity. So, when we engage in devotional activity, that cycle of the karma or karma cycle, or the cycle of birth and death will break. So we will acquire the eternal form of ourselves, because this senses of the living entity is the reflection of their original entity, right? So just as I have shadow at backside, right? Why the shadow exists? Because this real person, I myself, is present in this is present. Similarly, the spirit soul, or the senses of that original senses of the spirit soul exist. That is why this formation of the gross senses exist, because at the time of the dead, although we says that this is the hand or this is the head, but at the when we criminate this body, or when the body burns, there is nothing to say that this is the head or this is the tail. Every parts of this body becomes ashes, right? So it is not a false, but we should not say that this is the body or this is the leg. Artificially, when we see the organ, we will say, but the real knowledge is, it is the reflection of our real senses. So we should first of all establish into complete knowledge. So when we are situated in complete knowledge, we will acquire that complete senses, and by that complete senses we will satisfy the supreme complete, right? So this is the whole process that we should start for, and this is the thing that we have to learn. In another verse, it is said that the lightning becomes unsteady in its relationship, failing to remain faithfully in any one of the clouds, although they are a friend of the entire world, just as the lusty woman do not remain steady in a company of the man who possess excellent qualities. Here, the nature of the lusty woman or loose woman is described. A lusty woman does not remain with one husband, right? Why? Because their lust is so strong that he will seize one person and again approach to another person. Again, he will seize to that person, and again he will seize to that person, and again find the another person. So this cycle remains, just as the lightning. The lightning gives up that cloud, although the cloud has they are very friendly to entire community, right? living entities community, because they pours the rain. But this lightning is so selfish or so lusty that he leaves the company of the clouds. Just as the living lusty woman gives up the company of the excellent qualities man. I know one of the pastime of Indra Prabhu in his pre-consciousness, pre-Krishna consciousness life, he had one girlfriend, right? So when he become Krishna consciousness, or when he become he engaged or connected in ISKCON, uh, Indra Prabhu told that my girlfriend was saying that I have not engaged, I have not enjoyed you. That particular word, that I have not enjoyed you. Uh, I have not fully enjoyed you. Means I want to enjoy you to my fullness. And he give the example that just as that mutton or uh, flesh or meat of the uh, hen, hen, yes, it's hen, marghi in Gujarati. So just as the meat eaters wants to eat that meat forcefully or in exploitation, similarly every lusty woman wants to exploit or wants to slave or wants to exploit that person. Similarly, we will be exploited by the material world. Bhartuhari says that Bhogana bhuktam vayameva bhuktam, means the sense object, the person does not enjoy that sense object, but that sense object, Bhogan, will enjoy this person, because the person will engage their life into that sense gratification and in rewards disappointment. And result, what will be the result? He will be engaged in the cycle of birth and death. So this is the this is not a fair, or this is not a intelligent work. We have to engage ourselves into devotion, because this is our natural you can say habit, that this verse says that we have to engage into devotion, because otherwise we will be shikar, or we will be the prey of this world, right? This is the 14th verse. And 15th verse that I like this verse is in the midst of thunder, in the cloudy sky, there appears a rainbow that has no string. Its appearance is compared to the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his servant in the midst of material atmosphere. We know that the rainbow has no string, although it is called as bow. When the bow, means there are bow which has a string and arrow, right? But the rainbow has no string, although it is called rainbow. Why it is so? Because it is compared with the Supreme Personality of Godhead, uh, the incarnation or the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They have no dependency in this material world, right? Just as the living entity has a dependency on modes of material nature, the Supreme Lord is Swaraj or totally independent. He has no dependency on these modes of material nature. He will appear by his own independent will. Similarly, his servant or the devotees of the pure devotees of the Supreme Lord, he will also appear by his own sweet will. But the living entities or the conditioned living entities, he will be forced to take birth by their own action, right? This is the thing. We are dependent, and the Supreme Lord is totally independent, And if we want to become free, or to we become supreme freedom, then we have to take the devotion. This is the natural activity that the Bhagavad Gita and all living all scriptures want to teach, that we have to establish in the real engagement of this world. Otherwise, we will be entangled in the cycle of birth and death. So this is the thing that we have to learn. This is all about 15th verse. So till now we have discussed these 5 verse, and in next session we will discuss the respective one. Thank you. Hare Krishna.